Do you ever stop to think about how crazy it is that consciousness decided to come here and experience life and experience what it is to be alive? Consciousness chose to do that through you as who you are and your experiences and what makes you up as a person. We're all made up of such magical stuff. Really, really magical stuff. Same magical stuff everything else is made out of. And if you look at things that are all supposed to be the same, you'll notice that none of us are the same. We are all different gradations of expression of existence. I'm sitting here right now looking at all these aspen trees, and I know that the aspen trees, we see them and they look like individual organisms. You know, I think I'm looking at like 50 trees in front of me right here. But the actuality of it is that it is all one organism. The aspen grove itself is an organism. And then you have to wonder, well, if I cut down one of these trees, what does that mean about the nature of an organism? All these trees are sprouting up from one source of life. And our roots, we can't see our roots as humans as clearly as we can of the tree, you know. We see the tree, we see where the tree comes out of the ground, but we're separate from the ground. It's hard for us to imagine ourselves as also rooted into the same sort of tapestry of existence as these trees, and in the same way, because what is true for one thing is true for all things when you get to the big picture. And all of our little differences they're just different little pieces of one big puzzle. But the puzzle contains all of the pieces. Not one piece is left out. Not one piece is missing from the puzzle. If we lose a piece under the couch, the puzzle is not complete. We have to wrap ourselves up in the everything. We cannot say, well, this is not a part of the tapestry. This thing here does not belong in the tapestry. This thing is bad. This is a bad person. These people here do not belong in our tapestry. Those are all beliefs that come from this idea of separation that seems very obvious when you're just walking through the world. You know, you're like, well, I am me, and that is a tree, and that is my car, and that is my coffee cup. And all of that, we take it for granted that this is how things are. This is the nature of reality. But the times, they are a-changin'. In ways that we can't really understand, but if you listen, if you learn to listen and you learn to be a part of the tapestry, if you recognize that you and everything, we are all in it together. Me, you, these trees, this grass, the foxes, the wolves, the cows, all of us, the squirrels, the mosquitoes. Like, The people you don't like, the people you hate, the people that hurt you, the people that hurt the people you love, all of those people, all of those things. The reason that you want to leave them out of the tapestry is because you think that they don't belong, but they do belong. What doesn't belong is their adherence to the idea that there is no connection to God. There is no everything. There is no tapestry. The only time we hurt one another is when we are denying that fact. And that doesn't mean we have to excuse behavior. In fact, it means that we have to illuminate the things in our world that we would like to stop seeing, the things that we would like to stop experiencing. We think we are powerless against this stuff that we see, all this pain, all this, but we're not. We have created this world the way that it is. The things that bring us the most pain are entirely human constructs, things that we have chosen to believe in, that we could decide is no longer serving us. Because I don't care what color skin someone has or what religion they follow or what they have done in the past. If I see someone suffering in pain, it hurts my heart. I never feel gleeful when I see that someone is in pain. True pain. Unnecessary pain. I feel that with them, regardless of if they are, quote unquote, bad people. That doesn't exist. There are people who don't know that there is a higher way to be. And those people need to be loved up. We really need to love those people up. Like, see them. But do not condemn them. Do not damn them for their actions. Understand them. See what they need. See what they're trying to do. And see if you can't find for them a better way that isn't harmful to the rest of us or harmful to the planet. Because the planet is us. If you don't know yet that you rely on the planet to sustain you, you need to find out where food comes from. You need to find out where the water that conveniently flows into your sink in the kitchen comes from. You need to understand that your very existence requires death. And people are afraid of that. People don't want to think about that. In fact, as a species, we have been desperately running from death for a very long time. But what do you think would happen if nothing ever died? If no one ever died? If we just kept being born We'd overgrow the whole place. There would be no room for anything new and young and fruitful and beautiful and, you know, it's all a cycle. And death is just a part of that. And the trees aren't afraid when the winter comes and it's time for their leaves to all change and all their leaves fall. And it's the death of a land. You know, the grass, it all dies back. Even those among us who think, well, I'm a vegetarian and I don't eat death. I grow a garden, and let me tell you, gardeners, even home gardeners, you know, I'm just growing my tomatoes. I have committed many murders. So many murders. Specifically, I committed such huge murders that I had to build for them headstones. 3 enormous tomato hornworms. And I found them to be such horrifyingly glorious creatures that demolished a good couple of my tomato plants. And I said, I can't have this. This is not going to work for me. And I decided that they had to die. They're a pest. You know, that was a judgment I made on them, because I recognize that if I want my tomatoes to thrive and if I want my neighbor's tomatoes to thrive, I mean, sure, I could have foisted them off on somebody else's yard, but I wasn't going to do that either. So I made a choice. I chose the lives of my tomato plants over the lives of these bugs, these glorious, huge, pretty cool looking bugs. But what I'm getting at is that no one is immune, no one is pure from collusion in the death that occurs around the planet every moment. Some of it perfectly reasonable, justifiable, very natural, and some of it entirely horrifying and preventable and cruel. And I think it comes down to not valuing life. Not valuing your own life enough to know how to make it what you want it. Enough to be free of whatever expectations society might have on us, so that we could build something that served everyone. And maybe some of us would have to get used to less. Maybe some of us would have to get used to not having access to absolutely every whim and desire that they could possibly want, and then some. But it would be satisfying. But we have to start with our own selves and our own communities. So what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to learn how to value life at all levels in a world where death is required. And it's required of all of us. One day we will have to make room for the new. And that's not a bad thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It doesn't have to be a scary thing. Sometimes it's a really sad thing. But it doesn't have to be a bad thing. But we're all very afraid that we're not going, if we die, that'll be the end. Or worse than that, you'll be thrust into some kind of place where you'll be punished because you weren't good enough. You didn't play this whole game right. So, welcome to eternal damnation. Well, we all get born again in one form or another. And I guess sometimes, yeah, that can be hellish. But we could create a world where everyone felt safe expressing themselves as who they were. And that we didn't look at one another and see separateness. That we looked at one another and we saw that despite the fact that, yes, we do all look differently, we're all sort of a different amalgamation of whatever we're made up of. That despite all of that, despite the differences, but despite the fact that we cannot see the connection between all of us, it's there. It is absolutely there. And I invite you to ask to be shown that connection. If you feel ready to do that, if you feel like that's what you want in your life, if you're lacking that and that's what you want, I invite you to ask for it. And if you don't know who to ask, it doesn't matter, just ask yourself for it. Ask your heart for it. Because if you don't value the life of a tree, of the grass, of the cow, even if you eat the cow, if you don't value the cow's life, the cow turns into a commodity. We could all be having a nice time right now. That's what I always say. We could all be having a nice time right now. What do you need to do in your life, in your community, to facilitate us having a nice time? All of us, without leaving anyone out. And without being afraid. I think the other thing is that we are afraid that if we start valuing all this life, well, what about my life? When you value the tiniest lives, you can't help but value the supposed bigger ones. And you can't value life without valuing death, and that is the other part of it, and that's where people get a little nervous. But back to these trees, these aspens. All of this, I'm sitting among them, and they're no doubt influencing what it is that I'm saying. Earlier today, they blessed me with some really beautiful insights. And so I'm sharing some of them here with you today. And it's not just the aspens. I'm surrounded right now I'm in northern Colorado, surrounded by aspen trees, scrub oak, fir trees, maybe some spruce, lots of grass. I've seen foxes and deer, skunks, bugs, mice, chipmunks. All of these little beings, all of these things that we kind of take for granted in society, they have all taught me things. And I always thought, that's cute, but what is that? What does that mean? And I can't tell you what that means. What I can tell you is that you need to go outside. Talk to a tree and see what a tree might have to say to you. Or a plant, house plant. A weed. Oh man, weeds have a lot to teach. Thank you for listening. I am the disreputable Reverend Hannah Winters. Go outside. Talk to something. Anything. Talk to yourself.